Hi, now we will be moving on to the IB objective of outline the difference between micronutrients and macronutrients. Now, what exactly are micronutrients? Well, micronutrients are nutrients that are needed in human bodies in very small amounts. In fact, they should only make up 0.005% of a healthy human body's total body mass. Now, just to put this into perspective, of an individual that weighs 150 pounds, that is only 3/4 of a pound. That is almost nothing. Now, what exactly do micronutrients do in our bodies? Well, they are used to produce enzymes and hormones that help drive our bodies to do what we want them to do. Micronutrients are found in vitamins such as supplemental dietary pills they are also found in trace minerals such as iron, copper, zinc, iodine, and selenium. Now, macronutrients. Well, macronutrients are nutrients that, as the name implies, are needed in relatively large amounts. And this is good because they aren't found in anything that we usually eat in a small amount. They provide energy to our bodies, and they are used to build and maintain the structure of our bodies. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, macronutrients are primarily used to build our bones and skin and other organs. So, a macronutrient such as calcium is used to help create stronger bones for our bodies. And just a couple examples of macronutrients are, well, there are only a few minerals are macronutrients, such as sodium, magnesium, potassium, and calcium. But other foods and things that have macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Now, moving on. Here is a little video that more succinct that describes the difference between macro and micronutrients.
Micro and macronutrients. Micronutrients are substances that are required in very small amounts, milligrams or less, in the human body. Many of them are cofactors in enzymes. A cofactor is a non-protein part of an enzyme. Macronutrients are the chemical substances that are required in relatively larger amounts, greater than 0.005% of body weight, for example. Now, the list that you've seen is just the elements that compose micro and macronutrients. There are a few extra things. Vitamins are also micronutrients. Fats, proteins, and carbohydrates are also macronutrients.
The biggest thing to look at when deducing if a vitamin is water or fat soluble is if the structure contains polar or non-polar bonds. Water-soluble vitamins will generally contain mostly polar bonds, an example being vitamin C, and they have the ability to form hydrogen bonds with water. Water-soluble vitamins are transported directly in the blood, and excesses are filtered out by the kidneys and then are excreted. Whereas fat-soluble vitamins have a slower absorption rate, and excesses are stored in fat tissues, which can lead to side effects. As opposed to water-soluble vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins have structures containing mostly of non-polar bonds and are made up of long hydrocarbon chains or rings, an example being vitamin A.
Objective B.5.2. Compare the structures of retinol, vitamin A, calciferol, vitamin D, and absoric acid, vitamin C. So, to compare these, let's start off basic with what are vitamins in general. They are organic compounds needed in very small quantities. As stated earlier, they're a micronutrient. And these micronutrient vitamins are needed for normal growth and metabolism, which are not produced in the body. So, in another way of putting it, vitamins are solely acquired through diet, which makes it very important to have a balanced diet. So we are going to start with retinol for comparing the structures. Now here are some other things that retinol is involved with, and aside from just the structure. Retinol is involved in the visual cycle and is important in the eye at low light conditions, helps us see better in low light conditions, helps with the rods in our eyes. And it's when you are looking to get more vitamin A, you need to look for orange or yellow vegetables and fruits, spinach, or egg yolks. That's where you'll find the higher concentrations of vitamin A in the majority of food that you will be encountering. So the actual molecule itself, bring my cursor in, is right here. This is vitamin A. Now there are two major distinctions for vitamin A compared to the other two that we are going to be seeing, and it's this long chain here. This chain is a hydrocarbon chain, hence non-polar. This giant chain here that this one little OH right here is attached to is non-polar. And so this whole chain plus the added non-polar magnitude of this cyclohexane, I'm sorry, back here is going to completely overpower this single OH no matter how polar the bond between carbon and oxygen is. It's not going to be able to make it a polar molecule due to just the severe number of non-polar bonds it has to counter, which makes it a fat-soluble molecule, which will be addressed later on in this video, what makes a fat-soluble versus a water-soluble molecule. So we won't go into that detail. The next one is absoric acid, or vitamin C. This is a water-soluble molecule due to the several OH groups. You can find them here on the chain with these two carbons over here, or you can find them over here in the cyclopentane-ish area. And now, the importance of all these OH groups is not only does vitamin C, out of the three we're looking at, have the most OH groups at 4, it has a lot of non-polar, it has a lot of polar bonds, a lot of polar bonds, which means it can make bonds with hydrogen, and the old saying that like dissolves like is coming back into play here, and so this means it's water-soluble. Vitamin C itself in our bodies is a cofactor in enzymatic reactions. What is a cofactor? Basically what a cofactor is, since we don't really need to know more than this, is that it is a non-protein part of an enzyme. They have protein parts and non-protein parts. The non-protein parts of enzymes are cofactors. Absoric acid is also important in tissue regeneration and resistance to certain diseases. This is a very helpful benefit of vitamin C, and also why you might see people who are sick drinking orange juice to get vitamin C. And speaking of finding it, you will find it in vegetables and fruits most of the time, and the livers of some animals in a raw state, unfortunately. It is higher concentrations in raw than cooked, but you can also find it in milk, so you don't have to worry about that. And so finally, the other vitamin in this list that you'll find in milk is vitamin D, calciferol. Now this giant molecule in the corner over here is vitamin D. And what is important about this? The fact that it has non-polar rings in it. Here's one, here's another one, here's another one, here's another. Basically, it is a group of rings attached to each other. And even with this one hydroxyl group, as noted by this note, it's just a giant hydrocarbon molecule. You aren't going to get around that. And so it's a fat-soluble molecule. And what is vitamin D used for? Well, vitamin D is used to help stimulate uptake of calcium ions, which are important for the health of your bones and teeth. Helps make them nice and strong. That's why you're always told as a child to drink milk, because they will make your bones strong. And, interestingly, it's chemically similar to cholesterol, an important part of the plasma membrane in your cells, but we won't go any further on that. And where do you find this? As stated earlier, you can find it in dairy products, but in a more interesting and different way you can get it, compared to other vitamins, is that the body is actually able to produce it when exposed to sunlight. Your skin's able to produce it, and that's pretty much all you need to know for chemistry, unless, of course, you're in bio, then you'll probably have to know more. And so, now that we've looked at all three, this next slide, if it will go to the next slide, hold on, I'm sorry. There we go. This slide is for you to test your knowledge on, first of all, identifying, and then you can choose to, I wouldn't say choose, you can use it, use this slide to help with making your comparisons of the structures of retinol, vitamin A, calciferol, vitamin D, and absoric acid, vitamin C.
Now moving on to the final objective on nutrients. Discuss the causes and effects of nutrient deficiencies in different countries and suggest solutions. So to start out, we have to first define malnourished. This might show up on an IB exam. Define malnourishment, and it's when an individual doesn't get enough nutrients in their diet. So we're just going to go through a few examples of common deficiencies of nutrients, and the first one is retinol, vitamin A, and it's needed for healthy skin and eyesight, and it is also a common antioxidant. And the deficiency causes xerophthalmia, which causes dry eyes and night blindness because of its role in vision. And the solution that has been typically used in the past is adding vitamin A to margarine, because it's typically sold in a lot of markets, and retinol is fat soluble, as we learned earlier, so adding it to margarine is very easy because it's soluble. Another solution is genetically modifying rice in developing countries in Asia, called golden rice, and it's genetically modified to create a very large amount of vitamin A, so that poor people in the countryside who typically rely on rice for their daily diet are able to obtain a sufficient amount of vitamin A. The second deficiency is vitamin C. This is extremely uncommon nowadays, but in historical times, sailors on ships would often get scurvy, which is a deficiency of vitamin C, and they get bleeding gums. They have less resistance to infection because of vitamin C's role in the body's defense mechanism against disease, and often results in death if they don't get treated. And as a fun fact, British sailors, one of the reasons why their sailors were able to go on sea for so long was because they took along with them citrus so that they can prevent scurvy. Calciferol, vitamin D. its role in the body is to assist with absorbing calcium, which is telltale by its name, calciferol. And the deficiency causes rickets, which is weakening of the bones, which is expected because your body isn't able to absorb as much calcium, and thus your bones are softened and deformed. And one way to treat it is to replace the calcium or increase the vitamin D intake. Another very common deficiency, especially in the third world in Asia, is iodine, which is needed for thyroxine from the thyroid gland, which regulates the body's metabolism. And it's commonly found in seafood and green leafy vegetables. And often when there is a deficiency of iodine, it results in swelling of the neck, causing goiter. And in children, it's the leading cause of preventable mental retardation because of its role in the development of the brain and body metabolism. And the most common solution is often you'll buy salt and it'll say iodized. That's an iodine supplement in table salt, and it reduced iodine deficiencies globally extremely quickly, but iodine deficiencies are still prevalent in parts of Eastern Europe. Iron is another very common micronutrient deficiency, and especially in the developed world, which is very surprising. And iron's role is as a cofactor in hemoglobin, the pigment in blood, and you can obtain iron from red meats, green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, and other types of animal-based foods. And the deficiency causes anemia, and the symptoms are that you have fatigue, no endurance. So because iron enables you to have hemoglobin to carry oxygen around in your blood, and if you're not able to do that, you won't be able to maintain your endurance for very long. One solution for it is adding iron to cereal and milk products, and in our present and as a lab, you can get oatmeal or cereal and place them in water, and if you use a very strong magnet, it will attract the cereal because it has a large amount of iron in it. Other deficiencies are niacin, vitamin B3, which is water soluble, and it causes pellagra, which is most commonly associated with diarrhea because of its role in the digestive system. Thiamine is another one related to metabolism and digestion, vitamin B1, which is also water soluble, and it causes weight loss, fatigue, and swelling. Thank you for listening to our presentation on nutrients, and we hope this helped you to study for the quiz. You can also check out the videos made by the same chemistry grader. He has a set of videos on nutrients, but be warned, they are not comprehensive.